Hej och välkomna till min gästföreläsning. Jag heter Johan Lopes Helgesson. Jag ska spendera ungefär en timme med er, ta igenom en hel del roliga saker som vi har att prata om. Vi ska prata om blockkedja eller blockchain. Vi ska prata om NFTs. Vi ska prata om chatbots och AI och självklart ska vi avsluta med en lång del av denna presentation kring Metaverse, strategi, teknologi och så vidare. Lite kort introduktion om vem jag är. Jag har jobbat i branschen ungefär 25 år, utbildad i USA, uppvuxen i Sverige ska jag säga, utbildad i USA och gjort min karriär i England. Vill ni veta lite mer om mig så kan ni kolla in på min LinkedIn-profil. Sådär, nu kör vi. Eftersom de här slidesen är på engelska så kommer jag byta över till engelska för att det ska vara mycket mer konsekvent och så slipper man hoppa fram och tillbaka mellan svengelska fram och tillbaka. Så vi kör först på engelska och så kanske jag hoppar in och kommer tillbaka på svenska här och där. So the problem of trust. For you to understand the value of blockchain and the new technologies that is built on top of blockchain, let's start with the problem of trust. Give you an example here. Say that caveman Spike has a club, but he wants to trade for caveman's Grog's wheel. Grog likes the deal, but he wonders, what if Spike already promised club to someone else in exchange for mammoth hide? What's the main barrier to success in this transaction, you may wonder? Grog lacks trust that the club is still Spike's to offer. He doesn't want someone else coming looking for the club that he thought he was promised. In the absence of a personal relationship, people traditionally rely on trusted third parties to reduce risk in transactions. For example, there's in modern society, there's the concept of an insurance company. There's government enforcement like laws. There's escrows. There's banks. But in the case of Spike and Grog, they may have a relationship before, right? They may come from the same tribe. Someone in the tribe may know that Grog is actually an untrusted person. You know, he can't be trusted, right? So the relationship is there, but when there's no relationship, you need a third party. One of the solutions to these trust issue comes from the fact that in blockchain, you don't need actually a third party. It's decentralized. The mechanism, the technology has built in a solution to that problem. Another problem that he actually solves is the concept of double spending. We'll talk a little more about a solution to double spending in the upcoming slides. But just understand that when everybody talks about blockchain this and blockchain that, why is blockchain so revolutionary? The first problem that it solves is the issue of trust, as you just saw with the example in the previous slide, okay? So you don't have a third party, but the value also that it creates by not having a third party, you know that relying on third party comes with transaction costs, comes with loss of privacy, and of course, delays in completing the transactions. You know that if you send some money from Swedbank to Handelsbanken, it's going to take you 3 days or so before it goes through all of their mechanism to trust that, you know, you should be sending that money to someone, right? So that's very important to understand. Whatever people tell you about blockchain this and blockchain that, just understand that what kind of problem is it trying to solve? It's first and foremost, it's trying to solve the trust issue, and secondly, it is trying to solve the double spending issue. So speaking of the double spending problem, let's go into what it is. Digital objects like files and text are easy to duplicate. With a click of a button or a few keys, any numbers of files can be copied from one location to another. You're used to this. This makes systems very simple to use for most of us, right? But when it comes to physical money, the double spending problem is not of concern. The same physical bill or coin cannot be in two places at once. The double spend problem can only occur in digital systems, like when we're doing stuff digitally. Everything is being digitalized. No more. I mean, even Swedish Riksbanken is talking about creating a digital kroner. The Federal Reserve in the US is talking about creating a digital US dollar. So how do you solve this whole problem of double spending when it comes to digital money? It's still possible. And one solution is an example, a great example. You've heard people talking about Bitcoin here and Bitcoin there. Now you know why. So Bitcoin is one of the solutions that will solve the double spending. It's an open system. It means that anyone can start using the network without paying entry or maintenance fees. Likewise, there are no restrictions on the number of or size of transactions you can send. And thanks to the fact that it's immutable. We'll talk about that definition in the coming slides. The blockchain is immutable. It means that you cannot erase information from the blockchain. Once the information is put in there, it will never be erased. The transactions can achieve also final settlement in just as little as in 1 hour, as opposed to the traditional banks where it takes you 3 days to get the money transferred between the different banks. Okay. On the 9th of January in 2009, Nakamoto, a person called Nakamoto, or a group of persons, you never know, this hasn't been found out yet. They released version 0.1 of the Bitcoin software to basically solve a couple of problems. The first one was the double spending problem. The second one is, as you see in this slide, the fact that the economy in 2008, as you know, was crashed, right? It was totally collapsed. And loads of governments had to bail out some of these banks because they had, misused people's trust and misused people's funds and so on, right? So in the first launch of the network, they created what's called the Genesis block of this coin. They basically rewarded 50 Bitcoins in that first Genesis block, which is block number 0 in computer science. This is also important because they embedded in this first blocks the text, the times, 3rd of January 2009, Chancellor on brink of second bailout for banks, citing this headline in the UK newspaper, The Times, published on that date. Why? This note must have been, well, it is interpreted as both a timestamp to when the first Bitcoin network was released, but also it was, pointing fingers. It was a scornful comment on the alleged instability caused by fractional reserve banking, the traditional banking. So these group of programmers or this individual by the name of Nakamoto, Satoshi Nakamoto, basically wanted to solve the problem. And we know what happened after, right? As they say, the rest is history. You've heard so much about Bitcoin being revolutionary. It is revolutionary as a technology. It's tanked. If you know a little bit of history about the value of Bitcoin, it's very volatile. It's going up and down in value, but it has solved something that as humans we will thank this group of individuals. I think, anyways, we will thank this group of individuals for the foreseeable future because of the solving of the problem with digital currency when it regards to double spending. You send me one Bitcoin, and I know that the system, the integrity of the system will make sure that you cannot send it to Peter or to Erica by double spending it. So that's one of the first problem. And the second one, of course, is eradicating the situation of having a central bank that we know is not to be trusted, right? So this decentralization is the second solution to why Bitcoin is the solution to the double spending, but also the issue of trust. So now let's define a little more. Let's double click on that specific definition of what a blockchain is. This is going to be interesting, right? The part in red, I will be going step by step and define this and explain this for you. So by the end of the slides, you're going to be a guru. And when people say blockchain, you're going to go, haha, I understand exactly what that person is talking about. So let's go through it. It's a peer-to-peer distributed ledger that is cryptographically secure, append only, and updated by consensus. Let's go through it. Peer-to-peer means that computers or group of computers controls the other computers in the network. So they have a relationship. They have almost like a spider in the web. Every single part of the web is actually connected to each other, peer-to-peer, just like the internet. Computers all over the world. Think of it that way. Distributed ledger means that multiple computers in this network, they keep a record ledger. For those of you who knows about accountancy knows that there's this concept of a ledger. A ledger is essentially almost like an Excel spreadsheet. It's like a database. It keeps track of information, almost like in a tabular fashion. You have a cell and you have the information in there. So the multiple nodes is just like a huge kind of a powerful Excel spreadsheet that puts all these transactions in place. All right. So they maintain a complete copy of the ledger. So every single computer across the internet contains the complete copy of the ledger. If one computer goes down, the next one will just continue. This is the beauty of this, right? And they collaborate to ensure that the agreement on these entries. Finally, it's of course when people talk about block and then chain, what do they mean actually? They mean is that each block contains the previous block's fingerprint, which connects them together in a chain. So you have Joe sending Deshaun $100 in one block, and there is a fingerprint that is a copy of the previous block's fingerprint. In this case, Sue sent Lupita $100. So that's the reason why you hear chain in the word blockchain. The reason why it is a block, again, it's every single transaction is in a block separately. Joe's block, Hans' block, Sue's block, Lupita's block, and so on, Vito's block, and so on. But they connect with each other through this fingerprint. Very important to understand that. And this is the beauty. And this is why through cryptography, which is, that little keypad that you have in your browser when you're actually buying something on the web, it's called cryptography. That makes things very secure. No hackers can actually try to hack the system. It's completely secure. You cannot hack it. To be able to hack it, you're going to need a huge, powerful computer that no one on earth has actually have. So very important to understand that. Append only. What does it mean when it says append only? Information that's added to a blockchain can only be added to the blockchain. It can only come in. It can never leave that blockchain thing. And immutability means that once transaction has been confirmed by the blockchain between two nodes, one computer cannot go in and say, hey, let me actually go back and cheat. I didn't send Johan $100. I sent him 110. You cannot do that because it cannot be changed. It cannot be removed from that Excel ledger, Excel spreadsheets kind of ledger. Think about, when I say ledger, think about an Excel. You know about Office Excel spreadsheets on your computer. It's a huge kind of a Excel spreadsheet of transaction information. Someone sends money, it gets put into that Excel spreadsheet. Just think of it like that. The whole applications, one example, the best example, of course, of blockchain is the Bitcoin. It's built on a blockchain. It's very secure. But there's loads of more potential to this technology. As it says here on the slide, it will certainly revolutionize a number of industries. It is doing it right now behind the scenes without you noticing it, perhaps. So why should you care about all of these things about blockchains? Blockchain gives us NFTs. We'll talk about it next. The metaverse, we'll talk about it after this. And of course, centralized applications like DApps, Web3. Now, let's go and talk about NFTs. First, we're going to talk about what an NFT is. We're going to talk about the benefits of NFTs. We're going to also finally summarize and talk about why you should care about NFTs. What value does it create for you as a communicator? Okay. I'm going to jump off the presentation and just go to the browser to just give you some examples what an NFT is before we talk about technically what it does and define it. You may have heard of CryptoPunks. They were released in 2017, and it's all this profile pictures are as art collectibles. They became very, very valuable. Crazy numbers, millions of dollars. People are trading these collectibles, this pixelated pop culture figures, across the web. People are putting that as part of their Instagram and Twitter profiles, and it's so popular. You've probably seen it. Costs millions of dollars. The next example of what an NFT is Bored Ape Yacht Club, or BAKE. In 2021, they created a collection of 10,000 digital apes, and they became so popular with celebrities. They became these things that everybody wanted to buy. They are so rare that you bought it and you can basically sell it for much higher prices. Some of these apes, they were valued to over $2 million US. But the crazy thing here, as you probably know, the whole NFT market has actually tanked since two years ago, since the pandemic was going on across the world. Now the value of these, some of them cost $2 million, but some of it actually cost $1,000. So you can see the devaluation of these Bored Ape Yacht Club NFTs. And of course, there's Nike's Artifact, RFTK, which is a fashion studio. Basically, Nike created digital shoes and sold these digital 3D sneakers. We'll talk about it later in the metaverse part. Really cool. And your kids probably have Roblox, and Roblox has been known to sell Louis Vuitton digital collectibles, Louis Vuitton skins and Louis Vuitton bags, digital version of these, much more expensive than the real world Louis Vuitton bags. Can you imagine that? Isn't it crazy? So just show you some examples. But of course, these are pictures. But I wanted to just show you examples because NFTs can also be, pictures, audio, video. It could be a house. You can actually basically link a digital contract and with a physical thing, a car, a fancy Porsche that's a rare limited edition. Okay, so don't just think about NFTs as just pictures. This is the gist of it. This is what I'm trying to say here. Let's go back to the presentation. So let's define what an NFT is quickly. It stands for non-fungible tokens. It's one use case of blockchain technology, as we mentioned earlier. Non-fungible means that it's unique. For example, a US dollar is fungible. In other words, it's replaceable by another identical item, mutually interchangeable, because it doesn't matter which serial number is on that specific paper of the dollar bill. It's worth the same amount as any other dollar bill. Okay, the Mona Lisa is non-fungible because you can verify whether it's the real original one or not. The real one is, of course, worth way more than a copy. So in terms of technology, this is a definition. NFTs is basically unique string of letters and numbers that is attached to some digital, or as I just explained, in terms of a house or property or a car, physical assets. Also, NFTs are possible because we use the blockchain technology as its core to organize all the information through cryptography. So we can guarantee that nothing has been changed when someone sends you a digital picture or a digital contract or a video as an NFT. The benefits of NFTs are this. You need to understand this concept of attribution or ownership, eigenskap, all right? And then you need to understand the concept of provenance, which is just a fancier word for history, almost like a timeline. So the information that gets burnt in a file, you can track the information from the beginning to the end. And when you create that in an NFT, you can bake in or add a smart contract, digital computer code that says that, hey, this is Beeple and this is created by Beeple. When you do this, every single person that buys and sells or trades any of his NFTs, this is the beauty, he gets royalty forever, for all eternity. So he sold this collection for 69 million US dollars in a Christie's auction. Can you imagine that? And it's basically changed the digital art world forever. Because why? You have a smart contract that tells you that you own this, and you have a mechanism that gives you a royalty for all eternity. Just like physical art, you know, if you go to an auction place and buy a Monet or you know, a rare Louis Vuitton, physical Louis Vuitton bag, this is exactly what he did with digital art through the help of NFTs. So when everybody talks about NFTs, just remember this guy and just remember royalty forever, right? And of course, we need to be able to make this mechanism protect both creators but also collectors, because you know there's a lot of scams going on, as you probably heard in this digital NFT kind of community and world. And knowing that someone creates this digital art and says that this is me, I created it, and someone steals it and say that no, that person can actually impersonate and say that they are me, and it's not possible if you have a provenance, creator provenance, as well as a token provenance. I'll go back to the web browser again to show this as a picture, so it's much easier for you to understand. So artwork provenance is when you track the creation of a digital art, and then before it gets uploaded to a marketplace like OpenSea and Polygon. And then token provenance is when it's been minted on that marketplace, it's been listed for sale, and there's a collector purchase going on. So it's very important to understand that. Let's go back to the PowerPoint presentation and continue. We got loads of more to talk about. The first question that you will ask me as a creator or communicator is a creative individual is how do I create this provenance, how do I burn in an NFT that I am the creator before I actually send it or burn it or mint this to a marketplace. The slide is showing you my content credentials using Photoshop. There's a technology by Adobe that enables you to basically burn in who you are as a producer, as an owner, and you can actually put your handle, your social media handle, your Behance handle, you can put your Instagram handle so people can find you, right? But also the address, your blockchain address or your digital identity address, in this case, an Ethereum address. So that gets saved with the image. In this case, this is actually a digital twin of me. Believe it or not, this is actually a 3D picture of me, and it's created as an NFT. And also, you'll see in the next slide, I've also created a video version of this. And then burnt this information that I am the creator of this. If someone was to buy this, if I become famous, someone was to buy this, just like Beeple, I will get a royalty every single time someone buys and sells this video of a 3D avatar of me. All right. Finally, what I've done is I created a 3D printed kind of collectible. So this is actually a physical version of me, a twin of me as a 3D printed kind of a sculpture. So if someone was to buy this and put that in their, in a storage somewhere safe, and I become famous in the future, this will cost a lot of money. But you can imagine that person, once that person sells, the whole idea is once some person sells this item, that person can collect royalty for all eternity, because there will be a smart contract built in this that says that, hey, give the original person, myself, and the next person, and the next person, and next person, a royalty, a cut every single time. If you're a social media person and you've been using Instagram, you've been using Facebook, or Meta, I should say, the parent company of Facebook, has said that they're actually right now testing digital collectibles. That's another name for NFTs, with select US creators and collectors to share and create NFTs that they have created and bought on Instagram. This is going to be a game changer. I'll talk about it in the upcoming slides. This is going to create what's called the creator economy. Imagine you as a creator create something, and you have incentive to actually make money with your creation. Whether if it's a post that gets very popular, you can burn that and mint that as an NFT and put that on Instagram. People like it or people buy it. You can sell it outside of Instagram, which is brilliant for Facebook as well, or Meta, to actually feel part of this revolution that's happening. Otherwise, they've been lagging behind, to be honest, like most of those big social media companies like Twitter, as well as LinkedIn. They haven't tapped into the sharing economy that comes with blockchain NFTs. But now, when Instagram introduces digital collectibles, they will. And the next thing, I'll talk about the metaverse later, but NFTs will be part of the metaverse. It's a $8 trillion US addressable market. So there's a lot of money to be made in this industry. Now let's talk about bots and AI. Let's define what bots are. First and foremost, bots can mean a lot of things. It can be chat bot, it can be spam bots, it can be robots, it can be social bots, Twitter bots, and so on. When I talk about bots in this case, in this slide, let's talk about the whole introduction of the concept of chatbots. Chatbots has been very beneficial for a lot of platforms, especially when you have the concept of support, technical support. You're able to have a very well-trained robotic support system that behaves like a support personnel on behalf of a platform. Just like in this is an example, this little Manu kind of a chatbot here is behaving like an individual. Me as a person, I may want to find out some information, so I can just type in and chat with this individual. And the beauty of this is that it saves the company a lot of money in terms of support. So you have this little agent that can answer the typical FAQ, but sometimes quite advanced stuff as well through a chatbot. That's one way. It's possible because of artificial intelligence. It's been trained with a lot of information. So the machines are being set free. Now we're going to talk a little more about what artificial intelligence is and what value it can create. All right. So you've heard so much hype about AI, about bots, about robots. Can a robot take my job? Is AI dangerous? Will AI take all the jobs in the next decade? AI, without a question, represent the most disruptive paradigm shift of the next decade. You've seen Siri, the voice assistant. You've seen Alexa. You've seen Google's OK Google. All of these systems uses speech recognition by training information through these robotic systems to create experience for us humans, to minimize that we behave as robots or as laborers. Instead, the machines can do the boring stuff. You've seen, for example, Google translation, like machine translation, that's really, really good. It's getting to a level that it's really, really good. It's still there's still some kinks, right? You've seen image recognition that, to be honest, will allow cars to drive themselves. You've seen a lot of computers teaching themselves to differentiate and recognize cats and animals and any kind of objects out there. I'll talk about it in the upcoming slides. So AI is already changing our world. And speaking of bots, and speaking of changing our world, I wanted to just talk about one thing that's really changing the world right now. There is the concept of chatbots. A friend of mine, this is a sad story though. His former wife passed away, had some complication while in labor, and passed away. And the son, their son, survived, and they had this idea that, hey, let's actually find loads of pictures of her, loads of stuff that she used to own, all of that. Let's actually try to save that for the future. So when we talk about the love that we had for her, everybody that knew her could actually save all this information. So in the future, the little son can actually find out a little more about his mother. Enter AI. This is exactly what happened to one of the developers of Replica. Someone passed away, and this individual did just the same thing as my friend. Saved loads of information, saved loads of poems, collected a lot of data, and started to create an agent, an AI companion. So everybody can once in a while come to this companion and chat, just like a chatbot, with this individual. Can you imagine the value that this AI companion created? And now it's actually available as a software where people can actually buy or install an iPhone or Android or Oculus app and create companions, either to use as a conversational therapy, or someone to have a friend, someone that's empathetic. It's really, really interesting to see the technology being used for good. Very, very interesting evolution happening in that space. And that's just an example of, how far AI has come. Okay, let's go back to the slides. Final chapter is the metaverse readiness, how you tap into your crowd. Let's go. Experience is everything. We know that people don't buy products, they buy experiences. I stood on stage 6 years ago talking about the experience era, the experience economy, how things will need to be personal, it need to be predictive, it need to be working flawlessly and beautifully. The first wave of the digital transformation that was happening is in the back office, how companies, they created processes, manufacturing processes through their platforms such as ERP to improve production and operational capabilities. That was the first wave of digital transformation. The second wave was when it was labeled the front office wave, when you saw the rise of CRM systems, and you could digitize the customer experience solutions, making sales and more efficient and so on. So the third wave of digital transformation is all about experience, and this is where the whole idea of metaverse comes in. What's next? The next e-commerce, the next social media, the next anything, the next web is all about content. But let's step aside a little bit. Whatever you're creating right now, you need content, right? You need to scale the experience that you need to create product videos or campaigns and landing pages and shopping carts and social media ads and product shots using 3D and mobile apps and IKEA catalogs and so on. All of this requires a lot of content for you to create this experience. But imagine then when you're going to create new experiences using the next version of the internet. You're going to do avatars. You're going to do NFTs, which we talked about in the previous chapters, skins and branded assets and fashion using the metaverse. Content is going to be still needed. Remember that it takes 12 days, up to 12 days, conservatively counted, to take a single piece of content to market on average. Imagine then when you're going to create experiences like this, with 3D, it's going to require even more content. It's going to require new skills, of course. You're going to need to learn the new medium, which is going to be 3D. 3D is actually the next phase of the digital transformation. So 3D is going to be the next medium. Recall that the distinction between what people are doing now in physical and virtual is blurring. You're seeing a lot of experiences really mimicking the physical world, but now it's happening in the digital world, in virtual world. Whether if you're using your goggles, your 3D glasses or whatever, that's what's happening. It's an evolution. It's inevitable. Gartner says that 25% of people will spend at least 1 hour a day in the metaverse for work, shopping, education, social media, and entertainment by 2026, 3 years from now. We're almost at the end of 2022. So soon, 2023, 3 years from now, you're going to see that people will spend at least 1 hour in the metaverse. But what is the metaverse? Let's actually define what metaverse is before we talk about strategies, how you can tackle this amazing opportunity as a communicator, as a creator. The metaverse is defined as the next generation internet that allows real-time co-experience for users in virtual environments. What makes it unique is this. One, it needs to be immersive. It needs to have rich interactive experiences. It needs to have a co-experience with others, not necessarily in same physical space. To be honest, if we take a step back a little bit, to be honest, you already can do this immersiveness. You can do that on a PlayStation game that has high resolution, right? Co-experience, you can already do this with doing a Teams or a Zoom session with someone. That someone can be in another space or physical space at their house across the world, right? What's different here is that if you're doing all of this, what gaming has been doing for many years, right? You need to add what we talked about. This is one of the reasons we talked about blockchain. I was, demystifying what blockchain is. Fully functioning economy through crypto or digital currency, live and persistent. This is what will differentiate gaming from a true immersive experience. Whatever it's going to be called in the future, it may not be called the metaverse, but it will be immersive. And you may not need goggles to experience it. Already now, you can experience Decentraland, one early version of metaverse, just using your computer, just using your Mac or your PC or your mobile device. Same thing with Roblox. You can actually, your kids are actually using their iPhones and Android phones to experience Roblox without goggles. And one thing that I always take a step back and tell people is that you don't say cyberspace or information highway to the internet, another name for internet. So the metaverse may not be called the metaverse in the future. It may be called immersive, or it may be called spatial, or it may be called something else, right? Just remember that. But what makes it unique is it needs its own economy, and it needs to be live and persistent. Just like a city never sleeps, the metaverse or the immersive world needs to be on 24/7, and it will have to have personalization. The experience that you experience it through your goggles need to be personalized for you. We'll talk about that in the next couple of slides. Let's take a step back. Let's step back and talk about who coined the metaverse. This science fiction author, Neil Stephenson, coined the term metaverse in his novel Snow Crash from 1992, presenting a 3D virtual world in which people represented as avatars could interact with each other and artificial intelligence agents. In the same novel, the term avatar was also coined, or actually at least used. Avatar has been used since 500 BC with Eastern philosophers. But in terms of how it's used from a technology, from a digital twin technology perspective, it was coined in this Snow Crash novel. Everyone, why you should care? Everyone in Silicon Valley have cited this novel as inspiring them. From people behind the Oculus VR glasses to the makers of games like Doom and Quake and all those first person virtual RPG games. Has actually quoted this novel as inspiring to them. You can imagine right now in Silicon Valley, a lot of CEOs are actually reading chapters of this novel to find ways to differentiate themselves from other metaverse companies. And of course, you cannot talk about the metaverse without mentioning Hollywood. Hollywood, of course, has picked this up, just like any sci-fi dystopian movies. This is an example of Ready Player One, quite a good movie talking about the metaverse as well. It's been around, the metaverse, at least as in this incarnation. Second Life has been around since 2003, created by a San Francisco-based company called Linden Lab. You had the concept of a multimedia platform where people could actually create their avatars and interact with each other and buy and sell stuff. It even had its own economy in its Linden dollars. It had a lot of users as well. I think last time I checked, it had between 800,000 to 900,000 users in this platform. That has declined, of course, but you could get quite decent graphics and had plugins and you didn't need any goggles or anything. You can just go through using your computers and you can go into these virtual space. Now back to the future, back to now. As I mentioned, here's a couple examples. Roblox is an online gaming platform, has a lot of users, and most of them actually the content is created by minors. My daughter, her friends, they come from school and they do FaceTime with each other through their mobile devices, and they go in and they start playing. To them, this is actually a physical, almost like a continuation of a physical world. They play in school, they come home, they continue to play in this digital world. A lot of money has been made by these minors and sometimes independent developers that's actually creating the content, and it has its own functioning economy in the form of its money called, or its currency called Robux, for in-game purchases. So you and me, our hard-earned cash is actually being used by our youngsters to spend money to buy a Louis Vuitton bag, as I mentioned in the previous chapter, costs much more in Roblox than in the physical world. At least it used to. And of course, there's a lot of brands. I'll show an example of Nike Land, which currently creates experiences inside of Roblox for kids, games and so on. Very clever. So it's all about, the eyeballs, by just making sure that the interaction that the kids will have. So how does it look like when the kids are actually playing? This is an example of one of the games in Roblox. It's called Fashion Famous. It's basically kids dressing up and buying clothes and wigs and hair and makeup and competing to become a top model. It's quite fun, actually. I've seen my daughter playing this. This is actually from Jenny Simmer, a YouTube influencer, that's showing how she is playing this game. Quite fun. And you can't talk about Roblox these days without mentioning all these brands like Gucci. I mentioned Louis Vuitton a couple of times, Ralph Lauren, Vans, and so on. And why? It's all about interaction and engagement with the community and indoctrination, of course. Imagine these kids being part of all of these brands at the early stage, and you can imagine what that happens later on when they're adults, right? Epic Games is the maker of Fortnite. Fortnite is also a very good example of a potential metaverse platform with its own economy, high resolution, as opposed to the previous quite clunky graphics that you saw in Roblox. This platform is actually built around its own engine called Unreal Engine, which is used to be used mostly for first-person shooters or games, but now can be leveraged to create dual digital twins and experiences without having any coding or programming knowledge. So kids can actually create their own virtual worlds and interact with each other in these worlds. You've seen also a lot of record companies. Sony is one of the investors in the Epic Games platform. So you see immersive concerts and so on inside of this, like the Travis Scott is one of rap artists creating concerts and live concerts and streaming that across the world to millions of users at the same time. We cannot talk about the metaverse without demystifying the various stack and technology that's needed. The metaverse, it's very important to understand. When you hear about Meta, the parent company of Facebook, changing their name to just jump in and become one of the movers or the early movers or the early pioneers of this space, because of the fact that if you're an early mover, you will have a lot of value. You can have a lot of market share, right? The metaverse will not be created by a single company like Facebook or Meta. It will need this stack here. We need infrastructure in terms of data centers, GPU, CPU, cloud computing, networking. We're seeing 5G, 6G. By the time the metaverse will be here, we're probably talking about 10G or 15G, because it's going to need a lot of faster internet connection to push personalized content across, right? It's going to need devices. You see some of the key players here: Microsoft, Meta Quest with the goggles. I have a couple of goggles here showing you in here. Goggles from the Meta Quest here, Oculus, and I have, of course, HoloLens in here. But all of these are part of the devices, and you can see the people making them. I show Apple here because by 2023, Apple will probably revolutionize that space by coming out with their own mixed reality, AR, VR wearables. Is about to enter the space as well to compete with Microsoft and Oculus. 3D engines is already there. I mentioned already Epic Games Unreal Engine. There's also Unity, and there's NVIDIA Omniverse. And of course, we can't talk about this as communicators, as creators, without talking about the creative ecosystem. This is where digital content creation tools is needed, but also this is where the creator economy will be creating value, both for themselves, but also for the rest of the platform or ecosystem. So this is where Adobe with the 3D tools and textures in the Substance 3D tooling, Autodesk with the maker of 3D platforms, as well as Maxon with the Cinema 4D 3D tools. And on top of this is, as I began the whole chapter, is experiences. It's games, social media, esports, 3D commerce, both B2C but also B2B. So hopefully that gives you a non-exhaustive picture of how the stack will look like. I haven't mentioned a huge amount of startups, thousands of startups that's available in this space. It's rapidly evolving. When we talk about what's in it for you, why should you care when we talk about the metaverse or the next internet or the next social media or the next e-commerce? This is it. 3D is the key component of the digital transformation that's needed for both design and marketing. 3D will be manifesting the experience economy that I was talking about, right? Because when you're creating virtual digital twins, like you saw a version of me as a digital twin, you need to create that as a 3D. When you're creating personalized experiences like houses, cars, you're going to need 3D. But we've come to a point where the file format as a 3D is so high definition that it's now very, very tricky, especially with the help of AI. You saw the DALL-E, you saw the stable diffusion examples that I was talking about, and Mid-Journey examples, right? These are now so high res and high definition that you cannot distinguish them between physical items, physical houses, physical cars, physical clothes anymore. And this brings this transformation that you're seeing here created in the metaverse commerce. The first one is, e-commerce gives you speed and convenience. And then you have now metaverse is going to create personalization plus experience. So you have e-commerce and then you have physical retail together in the metaverse commerce. You have higher profitability with people are willing to pay 40% more for product tested in 3D. Imagine if you go into iCommerce or interactive commerce and you have much higher profitability. This is why you see the Nikes and the Amazons on this slide. Stronger community engagement. You saw the fan economy. Your network is your net worth. The more people you have in your community, the more you'll be able to make money. You have a stronger engagement. And this is what's happening also with Nike. Better customer insights. Brands are able now to test their product penetration without manufacturing. If they manufacture a 3D object before sending it to Southeast Asia for production, right? They are able to test this as a 3D skin in any of the metaverses, right? And of course, just like usual traditional e-commerce, global reach. You can reach and sell worldwide from day one by just putting your assets in one of the marketplaces as NFTs, as you heard in the previous chapters. And one thing that I really love about this space as well is the fact that when you're creating a digital twin like me, like I have, it has my shape, it has my size. It can actually give the fashion companies lower return rates. If you're buying, for example, both clothes, but also footwear, and you put that in your digital twin, you have the opportunity to decrease the cost that it takes to send stuff back and forth when something doesn't fit you, for example. Watch this space. This is an area that's really happening. There's a lot happening. I can't tell you much more than that. I've signed so many NDAs in this space. So watch the space. The return of investment for 3D in e-commerce. There's two major benefits here. I talk about customer engagement. This is why you see brands like Louis Vuitton, Ralph Lauren, and Gucci, and Spotify, and Nike Land creating experiences inside of a metaverse. And time and cost and cost savings is the fact that 3D is 10 times cheaper than the cost of traditional imagery, especially now with AI being so much smarter. The generative art can actually generate stuff much faster than artists, being able to do this. Okay. And speaking of 3D, chances are you've been at IKEA.com or IKEA.sc, shopping for furniture. Did you know that the majority, I dare say 80+% of the assets the objects that you see, the furniture that you see, the kitchen countertop that you see at IKEA is actually 3D objects. In the past, you could see the distinctions that sometimes they did their utmost to make it realistic, but nowadays you can't see the difference because the texture using Adobe's tooling, Substance 3D tooling, the textures, the fibers, the fabric, the marble on a kitchen countertop, the steel is all made as 3D. This is something called virtual photography, which is really speeding up the process of production. From years, the IKEA catalog that's no more, is now all digitized, but it's been going on for 70 years, been produced for 70 years, which required a lot of photographers, a lot of creators coming in and spending almost like a whole year producing that catalog. But now it can be created in just a matter of days with the help of 3D productions and rendering and post-productions. You can just, if you need to retouch something, you can just take away an object, a 3D object. If you need to send something to a new market, for example, selling something in Luxembourg in French or in Sweden, you can just change your colors depending on markets that you're selling at. I was talking a lot about personalization, how important personalization is. The thing is, with personalization, with the metaverse, you're going to need to have a lot of insights. You're going to need to have a lot of data. You're going to need to have a lot of content. I told you about how content is still going to be king here. You're going to need to manage content in terms of asset management and orchestration. Excuse me. And you're going to need, of course, to create various experiences, various cross-channel experiences, from social media to TV to metaverse channels and marketplaces. So all of that, you need a platform to do this. From the data collection to the real-time profiling and segmentation, and then to the governance and privacy. And speaking of privacy, you're going to need a lot of trust here. One key thing when we talk about data is if I have my kids experiencing, I wouldn't want my kids to experience Roblox if I wouldn't trust that platform with my kids' data, right? And you're going to need something to say, and you need to, of course, to have something that's going to happen at speed. The creation of content is going to happen fast, which is the velocity side, and it needs to be relevant depending on where in these channels that you need to put all of this content. But from a customer needs perspective, they need to trust you. As I said, you need to have something to say that's relevant to them, and you need the speed of convenience in terms of e-commerce, as I told you about the interactive commerce. That's gonna be the next incarnation of e-commerce through goggles, through metaverses, right? And it needs to be relevant to them. You need to have a beneficial. It needs to be beneficial for them. And again, you have the concept of creating your digital twin. And this is my digital twin. I mentioned this earlier. And you will be able to, just gonna turn off the sound here. You will be able to create experiences, in terms of properties, in terms of where we live, all using either AI mechanisms, or you will be able to create, cars, any objects that you normally want in the physical world, but you need to personalize it. The personalization would come to a point where the fabric, the materials, the stitching, in this leather, all of this needs to be able to be done. And how can you create this? You guess it. It's all created in 3D. This is the transformational component that's needed for us to create all of these experiences. People buy experiences, not products. But I can't stand here or sit here talking about all of this cool, geeky stuff as a geek without talking about disinformation or misinformation. And I mentioned this earlier as well when we talked about in the chapter about NFTs, how authenticity is very important, how attribution as well as provenance, how ownership together with history of information is very important here. Because of that, there needs to be a standard, industry standard, how 3D assets, how digital twins, how information like NFTs that's going to be shared across needs to be handled. And this is what the Content Authenticity Initiative is doing. It's a community of media and tech companies, NGOs, academics, and others. I even saw even camera manufacturers are actually putting this technology, this metadata technology, burnt in from the beginning of the creation of a photo. And you're going to see that in NFTs, in Photoshop files, in social media posts. All of that information needs to be having a fingerprint, so we minimize disinformation, but also misinformation. Someone can actually steal my avatar and portray that they are me, for example. God forbid. What if that would happen? So finally, how do you become metaverse ready? How do you build a 3D, knowing that 3D and data, I should say, 3D and data are the key ingredients for what's going to happen next in terms of immersiveness, whether you call it the metaverse or spatial or whatever, right? It's going to be the two things that's going to be needed to create these new experiences. What do you need to do then? This is a strategy that I'm sharing with you. First and foremost, you need to take a step back in your organization and you need to analyze the current situation. What is the current level of 3D expertise in your organization? Is any data already available? And what kind and with what consent have users given you their consent? Speaking of GDPR, right? And other consensual mechanism or laws that's at stake. What is our current brand identity? What do our customers want from us? That's the first thing that you as a company or you as a communicator. Remember that back in social media, you used to create a social media strategy. This is your metaverse strategy, all right? You need to make sure you have a scale and a scope of the project. Are you using it just to creating a fully functioning metaverse or a verse? Or is this one-time campaign or a long-term initiative? Or are you just creating this to just entering someone else's verse? What is the complexity of the models that needs to be created, like the assets that you're creating? You may have already a CAD assets in your product lifecycle engine somewhere. And you can take that and convert that to high definition 3D using various methods and tools. How many products needs to be digitized? Also important to have in the scale and scope of the project. And almost at the end, you need to have a targeted output. Do you want to use this stuff offline? Is it going to be live 3D? Or do you need, for example, configurators or someone to buy stuff from you from an e-shopping or e-commerce perspective through viewers, and you want to create an augmented reality experience, for example, and when you mix reality and virtual reality. How do you scale the sheer amount and speed of data when you're doing segmentation? And personalization needs to be also part of your targeted output. Finally, you're going to need KPIs or OKRs or whatever metrics that you need to measure the success of your strategy. Are you mainly targeting customer engagement or long-term cost savings or time savings, or are you doing both? Are you also doing short-term benefits? for example, just to say that, hey, I'm a pioneer. We are here. We're entering the metaverse by just creating a world, for example, an environment in an already created metaverse like Decentraland or Roblox or Sandbox, whatever, versus actual addition to the bottom line. Are you doing this to actually really churn out more products, or tap into a new market, or, as I was talking about, your network is your net worth? This whole fan economy, like Nike is for example doing. The metaverse future is far from defined and will be strongly influenced by leading platforms and future disruptors. There's thousands of startups in this space. There's loads of leading companies like the Meta, the parent company of Facebook, is trying to do right now. They've already spent 15 billion in their reality labs, and investors are really pissed off with them. And they're going to continue, of course, because they have the user base to really test their platform, their business idea. Whatever prophecies are realized, here at Adobe we have tooling. As you know, we have the Photoshop, Illustrator, InDesign, the usual suspects, but we also have the tooling for the next web, the next experience creation, which is Substance 3D tooling platform. It will be the central tools that's going to be needed for creating the Creaverse, the creator economy area that we're going to be talking about. At Adobe, if I just put a plug in there, we're not selling the future. We're selling a prerequisite, a prerequisite to any successful immersive experience, whether if it's going to be web 3D, augmented reality, AR, or virtual reality. Building a 3D content pipeline, and as you saw in the previous slide, strategy, a metaverse or immersive strategy will bring a massive return of investment for you and your company, or the company that you represent today, and make brands metaverse ready for the future. In other words, instead of waiting until everybody has tapping into it, you can actually, together with a strategy and all the information that I shared with you, be metaverse ready. That's it. Hopefully you enjoyed this session with me. Jag kommer nu att switcha över till svenska. Jag hoppas att ni har tyckt att det här varit bra på något sätt. Jag tar jättegärna emot feedback. Jag finns på de flesta sociala medier, plattformar, men framförallt ni kan hitta mig på LinkedIn, och där jag pratar och delar massa roligt kring smart contracts, web3, NFTs och metaverse. Tack så mycket för att ni lyssnade, och jag hoppas att vi ses snart igen. Ha det bra!